So firstly, freedom of speech is a right, and it's fundamental in Canada. The following are my opinions. Like them or not, I don't care. We don't really know a lot of Luka Magnotta's known residences, since he kept them all so private, and in other people's names. Registering his residences in other people's names was very intelligent, because it kept all of the unstable stalkers away. The only residences we know are not actually his residences. They were work locations. He rented units to use specifically for his escort clients, such as the DeCarey apartment in Montreal. 5720 DeCarey was only used for Luka's escorting clients. He never lived there. I have a list of Luka's actual residences, which I'll be speaking about. In the early 2000s, Luka Magnotta met and became very involved with the Toronto Greek family. I've done a lot of research on this and interviewed people, and this is what I've learned. Luka was first introduced to one of the Greek brothers. Yes, there were two Greek brothers, but in 2001, Luka was introduced only to the older brother, Nick. He was a fat man, 4 years older than Luka and very homosexual. He owned and operated a restaurant in the east of Toronto. Luka was also introduced to an East Indian young woman the same day who lived with Nico. Her name was Jyoti, and she went to high school with Nico. She apparently was very beautiful and looked similar to supermodel Naomi Campbell. Luka was introduced to these two people at a birthday party held for Nico. A man named Humdeep Singh, also known as Alex Singh or Phoenix, introduced Luka to Nick and Jyoti at this birthday party. The three young people, Luka, Nick, and Jyoti, became fast friends and spent a lot of time together. They kicked Phoenix out of their group because he was an extremely flamboyant, dramatic, and idiotic East Indian man. He went on to become an author. So Phoenix, aka Humdeep Singh, aka Alex Singh, was out. Luka, Nick, and Jyoti spent all their time having a lot of fun. They were always at restaurants, nightclubbing every night, and became inseparable. Luka was living by himself at an upscale townhome in the Bayview Village area of Toronto when Nick and Jyoti invited him to live with them at the Toronto Leaside Towers, 95 Thorncliffe Park Drive, a luxury high-rise. This is all confirmed with a driver's license, utility, and other records. Luka had a lot of very fond memories, going to the Greek restaurants nightly and being totally immersed in the Greek life. Here is where the story takes a negative turn. Nick had a younger brother named Tony, who was also a fatter young man. Tony, in my opinion, was extremely jealous of his older brother Nick and Nick's two friends, Luka and Jyoti. So Tony invited himself to the condo and began living there after his father was involved in an accident on his way home from the casino. Tony and his mother moved into the condo, and Nick, Luka, and Jyoti seemed very unhappy. I've learned Luka found it intrusive and never wanted to live there. Multiple police reports were filed and are all available showing how violent that household became. The police were called multiple times. It's unclear if Luka encountered Bruce McArthur, the Toronto serial killer, while living at the Leaside Towers. I haven't seen any known meetings. Tony used to date an older woman by the name of Gina, and she was very rich. Her family was extremely wealthy. Tony introduced Luka to Gina, who was 9 years older than Luka. Tony became obsessed with using Gina and Luka to obtain credit in her name, according to the public court records. All the merchandise bought with Gina's credit, $40,000 worth, and it all went to Tony and his household. Nothing went to Magnotta. He was a pawn in Tony's game, in my opinion. Tony was on all of the store surveillance, next to Gina and Luka. One day, Gina's very powerful father received an anonymous call from a Greek old woman who was Tony's mother. Tony became paranoid and blamed everything on Luka and moved some electronics into Luka's new residence. Tony asked Luka to hold on to the electronics. While Tony pretended to be Luka's friend, he set Magnotta up, and the police raided Luka's residence, finding some merchandise. The story was flipped, and Luka was charged with fraud, even though Gina was signing herself for everything, and Tony was receiving everything. Luka was dragged into the fraud. A sex tape was found between Luka and Gina, who were together for 6 months. She was 9 years older. She lived an hour outside of Toronto and would travel all day and night to visit Luka. If she were so mentally incompetent as her dad tried to spin it, why was she out at 2 a.m. in the morning? And she was working at the car dealership that her dad owned. She was traveling hours to visit Luka by herself for 6 months. Sounds like she was pretty adult and capable to me. That's why prosecutors completely dropped the sex assault charge. Dropped completely, because it was bogus and a lie. Years later, the media had a field day spinning this fucked up story. Tony was also charged, but blamed everything on Luka, and the two went to court on charges of fraud. Luka and Tony never spoke again after this. It's obvious to me, after interviewing multiple people, that Luka should have never been charged. Because of this, the Toronto Mafia, the Italians, began harassing Magnotta. Luka was a victim of abuse at the Leaside Towers. I won't mention names, but certain people were poisoning him and drugging him, to the point he had a seizure and overdosed and went to the hospital. Luka's lawyer at the trial, Peter Scully, fully supported Luka. In 2012, when Luka became world famous, Peter Scully threw Magnotta under the bus and sold Magnotta out and went on media tours. In my opinion, Peter Scully is a scumbag. The media lied atrociously about Luka Magnotta. They spun this story to fit their evil Magnotta narrative. Luka was framed for fraud. Luka also never spoke again to this Greek family. I say family because they baptized Luka and unofficially adopted him. Luka was baptized in the Greek Orthodox Church. Luka enjoyed the Leaside Towers, but regrets getting involved with such despicable people. Such fake, insincere people. A lot of pictures and videos exist, and I won't release these. This entire podcast is my opinion and my point of view. If you don't like it, too bad. If you enjoyed it, please share, like, and comment. Thank you, everyone. Luka was definitely framed.